What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And we continue our journey through the Pioneer metagame, as it is definitely shaped up to be a heck of a lot different than what it was just a month ago. Obviously, we had some pretty busted decks kind of controlling the format, and now that we have a little bit more of equilibrium, there is definitely some new decks and some old friends kind of rising to the top. But this week, we're going to be taking a look at a deck that nobody was really playing and didn't really exist before the bannings, and has quickly risen to being the second most played deck in the format over the last 30 days according to MTG Goldfish. And I actually think if you narrow it down to 1 or 2 weeks, it ends up being more played than the Is It Phoenix deck, if not pretty close. I'm not willing to go check. You can check yourself. But this deck has been pretty amazing. So today, we're going to be taking a look at the Rakdos Aggro deck for the Pioneer format, and kind of going over some of the things that make it, have the potential to be one of the best decks in the format, and going to be a point of contention for a lot of people preparing for the regional championship in October 4th through the 6th. And essentially have to have a game plan for something like this. But of course, before we go on any further with this deck, if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos from me, where we post a lot about the Modern and Pioneer format, as well as some other longer form videos, then I implore you to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. It's a free, easy way to support me and my content. And if you want to support me even further, you can go down in the description below. First, you'll see a link to this deck list if you would like to copy it yourself. And if you see that deck and you want to play it, anything like that, there's actually a new sponsor for the channel in Mana Traders, where you can use my link down below, sign up for a Mana Traders account, and you end up getting 5% off of your account, your monthly account payment. And Mana Traders is awesome. I use it for any of my videos that you see gameplay, anytime that I get any new decks, and even for all the testing I've done, I've been able to essentially rent and get whatever decks I wanted. Me and Randy have been able to play test quite a bit, and it's made it a lot easier than just having, a deck where I own the cards and, I have to essentially sell, quote unquote, those cards and get tickets, so then I can buy the other cards that I need for another deck. This is just an easy way to kind of play whatever I want to play and be flexible as a content creator and everything. And I've been using them even before for, years at this point, and I've been very happy with how everything has turned out. So I can't recommend that enough. Mana Traders is awesome. If you don't have an account and you kind of want to get into it, and you can sign up with my link, and you'll end up supporting my content as a result as well, which is pretty sweet. Also, finally, Discord server down in the description below, Twitter handle if you want to follow me on Twitter, that sort of stuff. With that said, and probably longer-winded than I want it to be, let's go ahead and talk about the Rakdos Aggro deck. So this is essentially a slick shot deck, but I think it's a little less focused on slick shot. And what I liked about a lot of the slick shot aggro decks, there's some where slick shot was very much your best creature, and I would say in this case it still is. It puts out a lot of damage and ends up just doing a lot for you, which I can show off. Here is a 2-mana 1/2 with Flying Haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Slick Shot Show Off gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and it has the plot mechanic. So you can essentially pay 1 in a red and exile this card, and then on a later turn you can cast it anytime that you can cast a sorcery without paying its mana cost. So this is like a way that you can kind of invest your mana into playing this card. If you're playing it on turn 2, you can play it. There is some reason to play this on turn 2, like if you play a Kumano, which I think might be one of the best cards in this deck, like not even joking. Like this card's awesome, but we'll kind of get back to it here in a minute. But Slick Shot Show Off, arguably like one of your best creatures. It's going to get ridiculously big. You plot this on turn 2. On turn 3, you can end up playing it, and then you can, cast like Ancestral Angers to target some of your other creatures that care about being targeted, and you still get the buff from Slick Shot Show Off. And of course, we have some pretty powerful pump spells here to pair with some of our new friends in Heartfire Hero, which is a 1-mana 1/1 mouse that has been probably one of the best creatures to be playing in Standard right now, at least, for the aggressive decks. And it has the Valiant mechanic, where whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, which is going to be pretty important later for another card we're going to get to. Some other usual suspects, we see Monastery Swiftspear. Dreadhorde Arcanist is kind of new-ish to this archetype, and it goes absolutely insane. Just trust me, bro. I have played not a bunch of it, but definitely the times where I've played it and I'm like, this seems like kind of gimmicky. And again, like when we get into some of these pump spells and things like like that, you'll understand like, oh, Dreadhorde Arcanist can absolutely kind of just, snowball out of a game. A deck that already snowballs pretty hard, Dreadhorde Arcanist can definitely get the ball rolling even faster. Our last kind of new card in the creature slot is the Emberheart Challenger, which is a 2-mana 2/2 haste prowess creature. And then it also has the Valiant mechanic, where if it becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, you exile a top card of your library, and until end of turn, you may play that card. It's essentially, it's a 2-cost prowess creature. So like you target this thing once with a pump spell, it's set. It's going to be able to get additional pumps from you just casting other spells, and again, gives you a little bit of like card advantage with this deck. Having various pump spells, it's kind of beneficial for it to be able to play at instant speed, so you can kind of attack. Your opponent maybe makes some blocks, and then you're able to kind of blow them out with the pump spell, and then anything else off the top could just end up being lethal. So all this is like important because we also have this creature, Callous Sellsword, which is more used for the adventure part of it in Burn Together. And this is where I was kind of talking about with like Heartfire Hero, with how it interacts is pretty important. So a target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any other target, then sacrifice it. So if you have something like Heartfire Hero or Emberheart Challenger, anything like that, even like Swift Spear and like how the prowess like actually works. When you cast the Callous Cells or the Burn Together, your creature isn't sacrificed as an additional cost. It's a part of resolving the ability. So you're able to target one of your creatures with this. You're going to get the Valiant trigger from either Emberheart Challenger or Heartfire Hero, or you're going to get the Prowess trigger from Swift Spear or again the Emberheart Challenger. And then you're going to have that creature deal its damage, or deal damage equal to its power to any target, more than likely your opponent's face, and then you're going to sacrifice it. And for a lot of these creatures, it doesn't matter. Heartfire Hero essentially allows it to deal double damage. You're gonna, if you get this up to a 4 or 5 power thing, you throw some pump spells on it, you're gonna be able to have it deal, 5 damage to your opponent. Then you're going to sacrifice it, and then its trigger is going to happen, and you're gonna be able to deal damage equal to its power to each opponent. And this deck has the ability to just essentially close out a game in that way. Again, with a lot of these pump spells, it's very easy for you to play a Heartfire Hero on 1. Turn 2, maybe play an Emberheart Challenger or Slick Shot Show Off in suspend, basically, or as plotted, and then just throw a bunch of burn spells onto like a Heartfire Hero or a Slick Shot Show Off, and then pick either one of them to have Callous Sellsword, like to throw it at them. They're going to get their triggers from you casting a spell or targeting them, whichever one you choose, and then being able to throw that creature and deal massive amounts of damage. So we keep talking about these pump spells and some of those interactions, so let's go ahead and talk about them. For Ancestral Anger, this is going to be something that gives your creature +X+O and trample, which is pretty important when we're dealing with a lot of power with these creatures. It gets essentially will give a creature +1 for the first Ancestral, and then the second one will give it +2, and the third one +3, and so on. It also allows you to draw a card, so you're able to kind of keep pumping through your deck. You play 20 lands, so it's very easy to keep 1s and 2-landers with this, and then eventually find like your third. You don't really need the 4th land, but if you need, Emberheart Challenger, target it with a thing, and then hope to kind of flip a 1-mana spell to kind of keep going is, pretty nice, honestly. And again, like the trample on this being super important. Also, the fact if you have like your second or third one, it's going to end up being a pretty big pump spell. We see Monstrous Rage is the other one. This has kind of been the go-to pump spell for a lot of decks. The fact that it gives a creature +2/+0 until end of turn, and you create the Monster Roll token, which is going to get even bigger thanks to other Monstrous Rages, Ancestral Angers, or even just like casting some of these other spells to kind of trigger Prowess or the abilities on Slick Shot Show Off, where we're just going to be able to trample through a bunch of damage, or even if our opponent's going to be able to kill our creatures, they're still going to take 8-10 damage, which can be absolutely insane. And again, with like the kind of reach that this deck has, where one creature gets through unblocked, or even if your opponent like blocks a creature thing and they'll be able to beat it in combat, all of a sudden your pump spells just get it to be so big that it ends up trampling over for 5, 6, 7, 8 damage, and your creature still gets to live, and it's going to have trample for a future turn. Titan Strength is the other one. +3/+1 until end of turn. Scry 1. This is a way that in the early turns, is like turn 3. You could upkeep this, target your Emberheart Challenger, exile a card off the top of your deck, scry one, so you can ensure that if you're looking for something like a Calisel Sword to be able to kind of throw your creature at your opponent to kind of finish off the game, you're able to do so. Or if you're looking for like like Monstrous Rage or Ancestral Anger to be able to kind of like pump up your creature, give it trample, and hit them for a massive amount of damage, you can do that as well. It does have some of that utility again, and also just being a very effective pump spell nonetheless. Some of the non-pump spells, but I think are kind of necessary. You see things like Fatal Push and Reckless Rage in the deck. Fatal Push is just very good against the Rakdos deck in general. If your opponent just tries to go for it, where they try to put a bunch of spells onto a single creature, Fatal Push is going to be a pretty big blowout. Reckless Rage for a lot of these creatures are able to actually survive it. Heartfire Hero as like the first spell isn't going to be able to survive it, but when you target it with it, if it already has a +1/+1 counter on it, or if it's got a roll token from the Monstrous Rage, whatever the case may be, you're going to be able to target it. You're going to give it the Valiant trigger to resolve, and then the Reckless Rage is going to be able to deal 4 to something, more than likely killing it, and your Heartfire Hero is going to live. Same thing with some of the prowess effects on like Monastery Swiftspear and Emberheart Challenger. They're going to be able to grow out of range of it, and you're going to be able to use these creatures to kill them. Of course, Dreadhorde Arcanist as well is just having 3 toughness is going to be able to survive it, and then potentially flash it back, maybe trading itself off into virtually 2 for 1 your opponent, or targeting one of your other creatures that can survive it to then get rid of another threat. We see 1 Claim to Fame. There are some decks that are playing 2. This is just a way that you can get back essentially any one of your creatures from the graveyard, and then the aftermath, you can give it 2/0 and haste for 1 in a red. So this is going to help with things like Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challenger, where you're going to be able to target it. Even if you're not giving something that is summoning sick haste, it's still something in your graveyard that can target one of your other creatures that you can then trigger obviously the prowess and the abilities on Slick Shot, Show Off, and Emberheart Challenger, Monastery Swiftspear, but also again targeting things like Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challenger are going to get you some value there as well. We circle back to Kamado because I said that this was like one of the best cards in the deck. So it deals 1 damage when it enters the battlefield to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. So you pay a red, you get this effect immediately, and then on chapter 2, you can cast, when the next time you cast your creature spell this turn, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So Slick Shot having, this is like a way that Slick Shot can survive something like a Reckless Rage, and just giving these creatures kind of like that 3rd point of toughness, and Dreadhorde Arcanist being a 2/4. Well, yeah, like Reckless Rage kills it, Fatal Push still kills it, but it's just a lot harder to beat, especially then when you're able to throw pump spells on it. You definitely get out of Reckless Rage, which is just another spell that it gets to avoid. And then finally, you exile it and you get a 2/2 with haste, and a creature's dealt damage this turn by a source you control would die. You exile it instead. This can be pretty good against the sack deck because they can't really block your stuff and then try to like trade off in combat, because they end up losing their creatures. And while a lot of their creatures aren't like super important because they're going to be like looping cats and things like that, there is like a window, there's an opportunity where, if they're not careful, you can, with a flipped etching, it's just exile their cat and kind of make life difficult for them. The mana base, super straightforward, 4 Cliffs, 4 Blood Crypt, you have 2 Den of the Bugbear, you have Ramen Up Runes as like a way to give you even just a little bit more reach. Soakin' Zen is going to get you some 1/1s on the battlefield that are going to help you, again, push through just that much more damage. Den, I think I touched on this really quickly. Something to point out too, you're probably not going to get to like 7-8 mana with this deck, and if you do, you're probably not winning the game anyway. But Den has the ability to be activated multiple times to create multiple 1/1s when it does attack, so just something to keep in mind. Sideboard, Fatal Push, Reckless Rage, 4 Thoughtseize, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, 2 more Claim to Fame, an Omnixilus the Adversary, and Hazoret the Fervent, which allows you to go just a little bit bigger in this deck, and again, give you something to kind of just throw like extra lands at your opponent with her ability. And then also just being a 5/4 indestructible haste creature is pretty rough for a lot of decks to deal with. Like imagine throwing, Monstrous Rages and Ancestral Angers on a Hazoret the Fervent. Like your opponent is definitely going to be losing the game. And like Calisel Sword as well, just being able to like pump this up really huge and then throw it is going to be pretty massive. And that is the Rakdos Aggro deck for the Pioneer format. This deck is absolutely insane. Me and Randy tested it quite a bit over the weekend, and it was just a deck that there was just some draws where like you weren't beating it, and the mirrors were actually, at least to me, they were pretty interesting and pretty fun to play in. While I don't think I would necessarily want to play like a Rakdos Aggro mirror, because I know that if I lost it, I would be super tilted, because it's like, oh, my opponent just like played a Heartfire hero, and then like they were able to throw a bunch of pump spells, and I never saw, Fatal Push at 2 copies, and then 4 when I brought them in, or things like that. But there is kind of like an interesting dynamic and like a thought process that you need to go through when kind of like playing the mirror match, like being on the draw. I preferred being a little bit more controlling by playing fatal pushes, reckless rages, and kind of keeping hands that were more reactive to like what my opponent was doing, to slowly add to the board, but then be able to interact with what they have going on to kind of punish them for going in on a certain creature. Which I definitely liked. I liked the claim to fames, things like that. I'm probably wrong on a lot of this, but there was definitely a lot of cases where if I'm on the play, I just want to try to win the game as fast as possible. I want to have some interaction, but I also want to just make sure that I can do my thing, because if my opponent just decides to keep a hand where they're like, okay, I'm going to try to race, then you can end up kind of winning those situations, because being on the play is pretty cracked, as the kids say. So that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below what deck you would like to see next in the Pioneer format. I'm going to be kind of moving through some things, but if there's something in particular that people want to see, I will happily oblige to that. Also, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check out the links in the description down below. Check out Mana Traders. Awesome service. Can't recommend them enough. And yeah, that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.